Football Weekly's Nolan Nawrocki gave a harsh assessment of quarterback draft prospect Geno Smith. Not a student of the game, nonchalant field presence, does not command respect from teammates, and cannot inspire. Mild practice demeanor, no urgency, not committed or focused. Marginal work ethic, interviewed poorly at the combine, and did not show an understanding of concepts on the whiteboard. Smith is a gimmick, overhyped product of the system, lacking the football savvy, work habits, and focus to cement a starting job, and could drain energy from a quarterback room. Well, does he have a point? Wow. We welcome in Director of College Football Scouting for ESPN, Todd McShay, who joins us on the phone. Pretty harsh assessment there. Todd, does he have a point?
It's complicated, to be honest with you, because first of all, Nolan Nawrocki, I don't know him personally. I've read some of his work before, and you know, going back to Cam Newton, for example, he was extremely harsh on Cam Newton, and I said a lot of the same things, probably in gentler language. But in the end of the day, when you look at a lot of the things that we said back then about regarding Cam Newton, and you look at what has gone on this past year, they're not very far off. Kind of the prediction, if you will, of what could happen from him emotionally in the NFL. So with that as kind of the backdrop, you have to trust certain people in the league and guys that you talk to that are doing the investigating and behind-the-scenes work. You have area scouts covering 6 or 7 different areas for NFL teams, and they're there on campus talking to everyone from the head coach all the way down to the lunch lady to find out about how these individuals carry themselves. In talking to guys in the league that I trust, the worst of it in regards to Geno Smith has been things along the line of, he gets a little bit overly emotional. When things don't go well in the field, I see him pout a little bit, starts to press, those sorts of things. And I've heard different variations of him on the whiteboard and how he did the combine. So I can see where some of it comes from, but I also, in guys that I trust very much so in the league, and I believe are a couple of the best scouts in all of the National Football League that I know, swear by him work ethic-wise. Now, everyone does in the program too, but usually they have an agenda. But guys that have no reason to lie to me swear about his determination and his work ethic and everything that he brings to the table in that regard. So it doesn't mean that Nolan's wrong. He may just be getting information from people who have a different perspective on it, and that's why it's so tricky to sit here and say whether he's right or wrong.
Well, Todd, let me ask you, Stephen A. Smith here. Thank you for coming on the show this morning. Let me ask you this question, Todd. You gave us the breakdown about, you don't know whether he's right or wrong about Geno Smith, but talk to me about Nolan Nawrocki. Who is this guy? What kind of reputation does he have in order to say the things that he's saying? Because it does beg he's going beyond football into the psyche of a particular individual who, dare I say, may come from a different background, may have cultural differences, clearly ethnic differences, et cetera, et cetera. What qualifications does this individual have to say the kind of things that he is saying about Geno Smith that clearly extend beyond football?
I think they're very harsh, the way he's put them, to be completely honest with you. And I'm not trying, this isn't me sitting here knocking Nolan Nawrocki. I've never met the man. I know he's respected, and he does a thorough job, it appears, and he has opinions. But when it comes to these things, I know for a fact you have to work off of sources, because I can't be at every single school in the country. And so you have to learn to trust certain people.
Absolutely.
So you have to, in order to say these things, and with Cam Newton, that's as far as I've pushed it when it came to the intangibles with Cam Newton, but I got it from several, and I'm talking 6, 7, 8 different scouts who said the same exact identical things and told the same exact stories.
First of all, let me say something to Mr. Nawrocki, and I'd like to extend a personal invitation for him to come on this show and to explain himself. I would love for him to do that because I certainly don't want to cast any aspersions on him. I've never met the man. I certainly am not qualified to question his credentials. Skip pointed out who he is succeeding, what he has been doing for years. Todd McShay pointed out that he is somebody that is respected. We will take that on face value. I respect the heck out of Todd McShay, and I certainly have respect for my man Skip Bayless and his football knowledge. But I'm going to tell you what makes me incredibly uncomfortable. There are ignorant people out there who will sit there and they'll say, oh, it's a racial thing. You know, it's Cam Newton and it's Geno Smith. No, it's a decency issue. I don't care what color they are. If Geno Smith were white, I'd be saying this. If Cam Newton were white, I'd be saying this. Who the hell does this man think he is? According to what we were told last year, when he went to Cam Newton, when he talked about Cam Newton, Skip, he acknowledged that he had never even met Cam Newton. But listen to the words of his critique. Very disingenuous, fake smile, comes across as very scripted, and has a selfish me-first makeup. You've never met the man? You've never talked to him? You've never sat there and looked eye to eye with him, and you say these things about him? I mean, there's something that's incredibly uncomfortable when you think that you have the right to sit there and to say those kind of things about someone you never even had the decency to approach face-to-face, man-to-man. Let him know what you're doing. Let him know what your job description is. Talk to him and try to cultivate, if not a relationship, some type of rapport where you can gauge for yourself. This is a man, he didn't put in quotation marks, scout told me this, coach told me this, former teammates told me this. He didn't do any of that. He is sitting there and writing as if it's gospel, definitive, finite, concrete statements about people's character. That is an entirely different thing altogether. And when you do something like that, you've got to be called to the carpet for that. And to some degree, you've got to be held accountable for that because you are jeopardizing the lives of kids coming up, trying to build a career for themselves based on what? We don't have a right to know that? We're not asking you who specifically your source is or anything like that. But my God,
Stephen A.,
to make these kind of statements is a problem.
I don't want to seem like I'm defending Nolan here, but I'm just going to give you the truth. He's an evaluator who talks to every evaluator. I will bet you that Nolan has spoken to at least one representative of all 32 NFL teams, and many of those player personnel people or GMs have sat with Geno and sat last year with Cam. What you've been doing this for a long time, Stephen A. What good does it to sit with somebody for 10 minutes? There is, and I'm not speaking about Cam, but you can get conned in 10 minutes. You can't go spend 4 days with Cam Newton or Geno Smith. You don't have time for that.
Skip, we're talking responsibility here, and here's how we do this. If you got a guy like Todd McShay, I spoke to 6 or 7 people. Or I spoke to a particular coach, or I spoke to somebody. So he's giving you context. And not only that, he's taking that context and saying to you, on the football field, this is what you're getting. Okay, this is what you're seeing.
These are character assaults. That's a given here.
These are character assaults, Skip.
I
Skip,
told
these are character assaults.
The greatest evaluator in the history of pro football outside a team, Joel Bushbaum. Anybody who knows the NFL will know what I'm talking about. Joel never spoke to any draftee, potential draftee, not one of them. But he spoke to everybody who was evaluating them, and he drew conclusions.
Did he sound like this, Skip? Did he write this kind of stuff?
Sure.
Fake smile, very disingenuous. He did all of that, Skip?
Maybe not as harsh as Nolan has been.
All right, well, Skip, what are we talking about here? We're talking about an assault on characters.
Okay.
A flat-out assault.